it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her.
Mhm.
I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my
Skin.
color.
Yeah.
In Caitlin's game that night against the Phoenix Mercury player Alyssa Thomas lodged her fist into Caitlin's neck in a play where no foul was called during the game.
What would happen if one of basketball's all-time greats watched the WNBA's most gifted young star getting targeted through questionable tactics? You are about to find out, because Cheryl Miller's remarks about Alyssa Thomas's conduct toward Caitlin Clark have completely shaken up the basketball community. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever watched a professional athlete face the kind of unfair treatment that Caitlin Clark has dealt with throughout her career? What Cheryl Miller witnessed during the Phoenix Mercury matchup has completely changed how she views the WNBA. Alyssa Thomas is troubled by this side of Cheryl Miller's outlook. Caitlin Clark finds herself in the exact position Cheryl Miller once stood in. From 1982 to 1986, Cheryl Miller was the standout player in a league packed with phenomenal talent, and rivals tried to rattle her physically because they could not keep up with her basketball intelligence. But Cheryl Miller stressed something important here, and this is where Alyssa Thomas's reputation becomes worth examining. Cheryl Miller knows the difference between what she has witnessed happen to Clark and what she experienced in high-level competitive basketball. In her own words, it was the most gutless thing she has seen on a court in decades. You heard that right. Yes.
There seems to be something involving this girl, and there's an elevated level of physicality that obviously compromised her availability last season, where she missed a few games. There is a palpable resentment towards this girl, where you have people who are resenting of her star power and her cachet, and as a result, if they have an opportunity to go at her, they're going to take it. Now, Caitlin Clark is no innocent bystander.
When Cheryl Miller watched the clip of Alyssa Thomas pushing Clark from behind while she was still dealing with an eye injury, her reaction was sharp and immediate. As someone who truly understood what raw competitive drive looked like, having gone up against some of the toughest rivals throughout her legendary career, even she recognized that what Thomas did crossed a clear line in terms of sportsmanship and fair play. But pay close attention to what Miller said about the timing of that push. Alyssa Thomas is now deeply shaken by realizing this. Before we continue, if you have not done so yet, please like and subscribe to the channel. Now back to the story. Miller brought up a point that plenty of fans had already been thinking, but nobody of her stature had been bold enough to say out loud. Hitting someone when they are completely vulnerable and not even looking your way is not the same thing as playing tough championship level defense. Miller pointed out that her own era was widely regarded as one of the most physically demanding stretches in women's basketball history. Back then, if you had a problem with someone, you did not wait until their back was turned to strike. You faced them directly like a true competitor, and that is precisely what bothered Miller so much about what Thomas did. Right now, Miller's comments have seriously damaged the way people view Thomas. What angered the basketball legend even more was Thomas's weak response after the incident. Rather than acknowledging she may have crossed a line or showing any remorse, Thomas instead claimed she was being unfairly attacked by fans and the media, saying she was damned if she did and damned if she did not. Hearing that only made Miller more frustrated. Miller insists that true champions and legends of the game always own up to their actions, especially when those actions put another player in real danger. Watching Thomas play the victim and avoid accountability reminded her of athletes who deep down know they cannot compete at the highest level, so they resort to questionable tactics just to stay relevant. In short, Miller painted Thomas as a player who lacks the genuine skill to reach her potential and leans on unfair methods to make up for it. Meanwhile, Miller's breakdown of Clark's game really highlights what makes her so special. According to Miller, Clark possesses the same rare qualities that defined the greatest players to ever play the game: an elite basketball IQ, almost unbelievable clutch shooting, and above all, a natural gift for making everyone around her better. But as someone who deeply values the integrity of the game, Miller also flagged something deeply troubling. This incredibly gifted young player has to spend energy watching out for cheap shots and dirty plays, instead of simply being free to reach her full potential. Miller argues that what Thomas did represents everything wrong with players who choose to target Clark rather than putting in the real work to match her skill or out-hustle her through genuine effort and preparation. It is troubling that she gets physically attacked at her most vulnerable moments, and Miller called it the worst example of competitive conduct she has ever witnessed in basketball. Naturally, this sparked a wave of conversation across the basketball world. Miller drew comparisons between Clark's current situation and her own past experiences dealing with physical intimidation, but she also made sure to highlight what makes Clark's position truly unique. She noted that Clark, at just 22 years old, is dealing with more pressure than most athletes face across an entire career, on top of carrying the weight of being the undisputed face of women's basketball. Miller's comment about Thomas's future in the league, which has since spread widely online, is striking. She argues that if the WNBA keeps allowing players like Thomas to go after stars without any real consequences, it sends a message that mediocre players can rely on dirty tactics to stay relevant instead of actually working to improve their game. She believes this sets a dangerous precedent that could push away the very players who are raising the league's standards. Miller went as far as saying that failing to properly punish this kind of behavior sends the wrong message to young fans watching at home, because instead of learning to target weaker opponents unfairly, they should be learning about skill, hard work, and genuine respect for the game. But perhaps the most powerful part of Miller's commentary was her prediction about where Clark is headed. Despite everything stacked against her, Miller said Clark has been shaped by adversity, and that every dirty play, every cheap shot, and every attempt to intimidate her only adds more fire to her determination to prove she is better through pure skill. Miller compared this to her own rookie season, when opponents constantly tested her physically, but pointed out the key difference. Clark is handling all of this on top of a level of media attention and pressure that has never existed before, that comes with being the most marketable name in WNBA history. That is exactly why Miller's support for Clark means so much. She is not just defending one talented player, she is defending the core values of basketball itself. In her eyes, Caitlin Clark represents everything that makes the sport great: skill, vision, class, and competitive spirit. And in players like Thomas, she sees everything that threatens to damage the game. Miller made it clear that the WNBA is standing at a turning point. There are two paths forward: either keep allowing weaker players to lean on unfair tactics to stay relevant, or protect and elevate their top talent, giving players like Clark the freedom to fully showcase their abilities and lift the entire league. Miller's message was simple: the league's future depends on which path they choose. And that is exactly the question everyone is now asking. Will the WNBA take Miller's advice and protect Clark, or will it keep allowing players like Thomas to harm the league's image through questionable conduct? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. What do you think about Cheryl Miller's strong criticism of Alyssa Thomas? Do you think she is being too harsh, or do you believe her concerns are completely valid? And more importantly, do you think the WNBA will eventually step in to protect its biggest star? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I read every single one. If you want more breakdowns like this that cut through the noise and get to what is really going on in basketball, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Cheryl Miller's remarks could end up shaping how Caitlin Clark's situation unfolds. In the WNBA, and the basketball world is paying close attention, one thing becomes harder to ignore as this story develops. This conversation is not just about one game, one rough foul, or one heated moment anymore. It is about the future of women's basketball, the standards the league wants to uphold, and how its biggest stars are treated under the spotlight. Before even stepping into the WNBA, Clark already faced expectations few athletes ever experience. Millions tune in to watch every single game she plays. Every move she makes gets looked at from every angle. Every win gets celebrated, and every mistake makes headlines. That is simply part of being one of the most recognizable names in basketball today. At the same time, veteran players across the league keep competing at the highest level, bringing experience, toughness, and pride to every matchup. The WNBA's goal is to make sure intense competition never crosses into unnecessary or dangerous play. Fans want intensity, they want rivalries, they want real basketball, but they also want fairness, safety, and respect, because Miller knows firsthand what it feels like to perform under immense pressure. Her words have sparked serious debate. Throughout her remarkable career, she faced some of the toughest competitors and defenders the sport has ever seen. But her message here goes beyond toughness. It is about protecting the integrity of the game and making sure skill, not controversy, stays at the center of the conversation. There is no denying Miller's comments have stirred up plenty of discussion, whether people fully agree with her or feel the situation has been blown out of proportion. The question of how the league should handle physical play directed at its top stars remains hotly debated among fans, analysts, former players, and media voices alike. Should officials crack down harder? Should the league hand out tougher penalties? Or is this simply part of playing professional basketball? Everyone seems to see it differently. What is not up for debate is Clark's response. She has continued to focus purely on basketball, refusing to let controversy, physical play, or criticism define her career. She keeps showing up, competing, and proving why so many people see her as the future of the sport. And that resilience is a big reason her fan base keeps growing. The WNBA, meanwhile, is experiencing a surge in attention like never before, with TV ratings climbing, arenas filling up, social media buzzing every day, and new fans discovering women's basketball for the very first time. Situations like this do not just impact one player or team, they shape how the entire league is perceived around the world. As the season continues, every game will carry even more weight. Every appearance Clark makes will be watched closely. Every controversial play will be broken down, every referee call will be debated, and each game adds another chapter to what is already one of the most talked about seasons in WNBA history. So here's the big question for you. Do you think Miller's comments accurately capture what is really happening in the league right now? Do you believe the WNBA is doing enough to protect its players while still allowing tough competitive basketball? And what kind of impact do you think this whole situation will have on Clark, Thomas, and the league going forward? Share your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely want to hear what basketball fans around the world think, and your perspective might even be featured in a future video. Respectful discussion is what makes this community special. If you are enjoying this kind of in-depth basketball coverage and want more exclusive updates and major stories about the WNBA, NBA legends, and Caitlin Clark, do not forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for every upload. Thanks so much for your support and for watching. And remember, every single night another chapter of basketball history gets written. So stick around to find out what happens next because it might be even bigger than this. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, turn on all notifications, and we will catch you in the next video right after this one.